Nathan Schafer, welcome to the Pre-Construction Podcast.
Thank you.
We are live at Advancing Preconstruction 2026 in Phoenix. And today's topic, well, actually, there's going to be three topics today. So we've got Nathan Schafer, Estimating Manager at Cornerstone GC. The three topics that we're going to be discussing is new estimators, people coming into the industry, their understanding of value engineering, a couple of ASPE, AACE kind of industry standards that they can get, people that you should be listening to talking about. The second topic is lean construction and how that is impacting estimating. And the third topic is how you at Cornerstone is incorporating data science into pre-construction workflow. So without further ado, let's get into it. So talk to me, Nathan. You're in Alaska working with Cornerstone. Give me an understanding of what you're doing as estimating manager and what type of company Cornerstone is.
Yeah. Cornerstone is a self-performing general contractor. There are some contractors in the state that do mostly CM work. They don't self-perform, but the work that we do is mostly work that a carpenter would self-perform. Anything Division 3 concrete on most projects will self-perform. Chipboard assemblies, sometimes casework installation, things like that. So that's kind of the work that we choose to do ourselves. And then, of course, we'll sub out to all the other trades and work with vendors in the States and in Alaska, and then sometimes in Canada as well. So there are a few companies that operate as we do that I would call maybe worthy rivals. There's three of us that are quite large in the state. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about us and what we do. We are one of the bigger companies in the state for what we do.
Good. What sort of projects do you do, Nathan?
You know, we don't really have a deep enough market in Alaska to be selective. So it's kind of like whatever comes along, you know what I mean? Vertical.
Yeah.
That is. We don't really get into civil work too much.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of those projects too in Alaska, especially right now.
Yeah.
But mostly what we do is vertical commercial construction. And so some of the industries we're working in right now, like hospitality, say, healthcare, they make up the majority of the projects we're currently working on. But in the last year, we've also had some federal projects to support some of the military bases in the state. There's a lot of military bases in Alaska.
Good.
I mean, it could be anything from, like staff housing or patient housing to, which I guess is really like multifamily by another name, right?
Exactly.
But,
multifamily, student accommodation, senior living, it's all the same.
Right. Yeah. It's all the same thing. Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of that right now. There's a big need for that. I think pretty much everywhere in the country, but especially in Alaska, to support the healthcare workforce and the healthcare needs for their patients. So we got that going on, some hospitality work, some university work, higher education type stuff. So
brilliant. Yeah, I like it.
Work that we're doing.
And then tell me now, there's something that we were talking off air, there's something that you're really passionate about, it's close to your heart, is basically developing the next generation of talent, estimating talent. You obviously go to these conferences, you speak a lot, you network a lot with young people through ASPE, AACE. Tell me what you're seeing in the next generation of talent. What have we got coming through? What can we learn from them? And again, what are they struggling with as well?
I'd be shocked actually if you spoke to anyone that told you there's a lot of anybody coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having spoken with a lot of colleagues and peers at these events and through some other networking channels, it kind of seems like we're all facing the same problem, getting new people into estimating. I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that. But one thing that excites me right now is that there are some schools that are working with ACCE and ASPE to get pre-construction concentrations or tracks as part of their CM programs. I think that's really cool because a lot of people who would enter construction by way of college through the CM program aren't even aware that pre-con is an option for them. They kind of think, we're going to go be a PM. That's the professional career in construction. So I actually think estimating, my boss, he'll always say that estimating is like the hidden gem of construction, right? It's this thing that is a really beautiful career to choose for a lot of different reasons, but not a lot of people know about it. So I think, if we want to get more people into pre-construction and excited about pre-construction, first we got to educate them that it's an option. And then I think from there, it's all about how you present it. We are seeing some people. So we started a formal internship program last year. We had interns before that, but now we have a formal program. And we pull students out of the construction management program at University of Alaska Anchorage. And we've given them all a chance to do a rotation in pre-construction for the most part, maybe with the exception of a couple who just really loved ops. It was clear they were always going to go that direction, so they've stayed over there. But our associate estimator right now came from that program and had no idea that pre-con was an option. Even when he started, I don't think he really knew what we did down at the end of our hall. So he's excited.
It's a dark room with a few lights on that people just keep their heads down and crunch numbers. That's the misconception.
And the lights are on all the time, man.
Yeah.
The lights are on all the time.
24/7. Yeah. Never stop. And it's funny. Obviously, we talked there about the education program. One thing, and this is a massive ACC. It's a massive step forward. We obviously know the ASPE, ACC do great certifications, but getting it into the degree construction management is a step. I think we can go one step further. I think it's up to the industry, things like the podcast, people in general talking about it in high schools, in their local high schools, the high schools that they went to, but then maybe one of the big GCs starting a pre-construction degree, partnering with a university and putting on the program and delivering 35, 40 estimators every year for our industry.
It's kind of a shame, right? Because you have other areas of the world like Europe and I think Australia and maybe New Zealand, some countries in South America, South Africa, I'm sure has a program for quantity surveyor. But we don't have anything like that, you know? Certification is really the only professional designation you could obtain, the only way to get credibility in that way. Until now, it's always been like on the job training, you know what I mean? And everybody wants a trained estimator right now. Nobody wants to teach anybody. So it's a big problem, I think, actually, that we're facing.
Yeah. Nobody's got the time. Nobody's got the time to train people. I mean, we're very lucky that previously you would have had a mentor previously. We're really lucky that there's been good mentors, but unfortunately those mentors are leaving our industry now in the next 10 or 15 years. So the next generation of estimating mentors are important, and we need to keep doing that. Talk to me about value engineering within people that are just joining the industry. How do you kind of guide that associate estimator that you're looking after or you're mentoring right now through value engineering?
You know, it's a new idea for us as a company. I mean, formally, right? The idea of, and maybe I should even back up a little bit further than that. So I think a lot of people have an idea of value engineering. And for the record, I'm sensitive to the term because most of what we actually do when we do what most people call value engineering is value management.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
We're managing value, and a lot of people think of it as like chopping program, right? Or choosing cheaper materials, and that's pretty much the idea of it. And it's not that at all, right? I mean, maybe we could split hairs on that a little bit, but it's really not about that. You know what I mean? It's about function-based thinking. And it's about whatever you need to do to increase the value, the function over the cost. And so you can do that by reducing costs, or you can do that by increasing the function, right? But it's not about cutting program. And when we have those conversations as contractors, it's mostly like kind of like a ransom list. Like, here's what you have to do to meet your budget. Here's a list of all the things you have to get rid of. And it's just not that. So it's a very collaborative process that involves all of the stakeholders. To be fair, my idea of value engineering up until I went through SAVE International's accreditation program was much like everyone else's. So I think, you know, to the extent that we can get younger estimators interested in SAVE International and going through the VMA program, I would think at the least, all the better, right? Because even though you technically need to be, I think, a certified value specialist, a CVS, to lead value studies, you're equipped with all the tools to be able to do that. And so having gone through that program, one of the breakthrough projects that we had at the company last year I led was introducing a formal value management program. Okay. So it wasn't this thing where we're just chopping out program at the 11th hour. We had the opportunity on a project to get in at between 35 and 65% design development. And it produced a lot of great results. The GMP on the project ended up close to 90 million. In the end, we presented them 13 value propositions totaling $9 million. Of that, like 7 million were accepted. So
Wow.
It was a really successful pilot of the program. I'm really excited about it. And I think once we get the associate estimator that we have now into that, it could be very powerful for us going forward. I think it's a big part of the future, actually, in pre-construction.
Well, we're already seeing it. I mean, the amount of kind of delivery methods now, the majority of which are negotiated in or early stage. But a case study like that, do you use that case study then with future owners and developers and clients? And how much do you see that value management becoming the norm?
Yeah, I have used it on at least 3 different pursuits since then.
Yeah.
As a testimonial of sorts. I don't think I can really call it a case study because there were things that I wanted to do as part of it that are necessary for it to be a complete value study, and I didn't do those. Either they didn't see the value in it, or there wasn't enough time with the resources that we had working on it. But I have used it as a testimonial, and people have engaged with us further on projects. And I think it's even been part of why they decided to go with us. My ultimate vision for it is that it will be a pre-construction service that will be able to market, like anything else.
And I hope it's going to be a pre-construction service that you charge on,
right,
and not free-con. Yeah.
It's free-con right now. Well, but not really, right?
Yeah,
because if it results in the project, if we secure it, then...
Yeah, but when there's a case study or an ROI on it, it's much easier to sell that.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know a client that if you went down and sat them and told them what you just told me would say, no, I don't want that. I don't want to save 9 million on it or 7 million on a $90 million project. Yeah,
I think part of the objection to paying for it as a pre-construction service is that, again, people mostly have one idea of value engineering, that is like cutting program or choosing cheaper materials. The other thing is that cost avoidance is very difficult to sell.
Yeah.
You really have to do a proper case study. I think that's one of the cool things about Brent Pilgrim doing the case study with model-based and model-informed estimating, is that they've really proven that the upfront cost for the additional modeling work, what little of it there actually is to do, will save a lot of money downstream. Yeah. And to the extent that you can quantify that and prove that, I think it gets easier to justify and feel good about spending $50,000 now to save $500,000 later.
100%, yeah. And the wonderful thing about Brent's kind of case studies as well, it's independent architects and independent GCs that he's working with. And again, it sounds easy, but he's most probably spent the best part of 2 decades kind of preparing for that. So that's very interesting on the value engineering, value management. One of the other topics, and the second topic I want to talk about, is lean construction and how that is impacting estimating. I know this is a topic that you're speaking about, is that right?
So I'm speaking on both, yeah. I'm
both?
speaking
Nice.
The first day on value engineering.
Lovely.
To an audience of people who would just be starting their pre-construction careers, more junior estimators. And then the second day, I'll be speaking on the stage to mid to executive level pre-construction professionals about lean construction's impact on estimating.
Nice. And what's that going to entail? Because lean construction, again, is creeping into construction. It's becoming more and more prevalent. What are you seeing on the impact on estimating?
Yeah, I think people see it as a buzzword.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's all these buzzwords that you hear. And to be fair, there are some companies out there that aren't doing any favors for that, right? They're really capitalizing on the fact that people are interested in it. And they're using all their branding.
You reckon that they're talking about lean engineering, lean construction, but they're not actually delivering on it?
Well, and not so much that they're not delivering it, just so much that I don't think there's a solid understanding of it. I think people write it off a lot because it sounds like a buzzword to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds like partnering. It sounds like BIM. It's like a word that you hear a lot that just gets tossed around like Scrum, and people, they sort of write it off as just another fad. But the thing is, some of those things actually work, right? Like, I mean, partnering, if you do it correctly, it's a hugely successful program. BIM, hugely successful, right? I mean, in 2005, it was kind of a crazy idea, but now, I mean, I really think that's the future of pre-construction and estimating. Yeah, I really do.
Talk just more about that. In what way? I mean,
Well, there's a big buzz. I mean, if you walk through the exhibitors hall right now, I would challenge you to find a booth that doesn't have AI written in their branding
Oh, no.
somewhere.
I mean, you talk about it, and by the way, if it's not written in there,
Yeah.
then they're going to struggle.
It is. Yeah,
You know
that's
what I
the
mean?
case. Yeah,
That is the case. But no,
sure.
I agree with you. So go ahead.
So, but back to that, right? There's a lot of craze right now around AI takeoff tools.
Yeah.
And I sort of think people who are really interested in that likely feel that they need to engage with it because it saves them time. It allows them to focus on being more creative and on other value add activities. And that's a good thing. That's actually, a lean principle, right? Is identifying the bottleneck, and takeoff is absolutely a bottleneck in the estimating process. So to the extent that you can reduce friction there, you increase your flow efficiency. And so it is the lean thing to do, is to engage with the AI takeoff. But I think that people who do it, even if they're doing it necessarily, are missing the mark sometimes because, again, if you follow Brent's study and his model-based or model-informed estimating workflow, the integrated estimating workflow, what you'll see is that, I think we're just going to skip that altogether, man. I really do. It doesn't take a lot for designers to get the model to a place where we can extract our quantity data effectively from model elements. And in my mind, the future of pre-construction looks that way. Eventually, we get to a point where designers are comfortable sharing quantities. Right now, I think that there's some liability in that makes them uncomfortable. But I do think in the future, we might see RFPs where people are giving quantities for construction materials, for building materials to competing GCs and saying, we don't want you to compete on your interpretation of an incomplete set of drawings. Yeah. We're going to give you the information. We're going to choose based off of experience. We're going to choose based off of speed. We're going to choose based off of other factors like creativity and engagement in the pre-construction process. But, the AI takeoff tool, it's like, what do you need it for? Revit creates all of that information and all the designers are working in it.
Yeah. And you mentioned there's something important, the liability and the risk. Who's going to take that on? Mm-hmm. Do you see the GCs taking that on from the designers?
Most likely not. No,
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really thought about it, to be fair. Yeah. So that's sort of a gut reaction. Yeah. You shouldn't always trust gut reactions. Yeah. But I sort of think probably not. I don't know how it's going to look.
Even for, as you say, if they can prove and show a massive return on investment through model-based estimating, that they might think, you know what, this is worth it. Obviously, if we get an internal team, but if we take the half complete or even quarter complete BIM model and then work with it then off the back of that, it might be worth it.
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, I do think so. And like I say, I think Brent has proven that. Yeah, I really do. But I think the future of estimating is model-based. Yeah. And I think that AI being applied there is probably not going to be very necessary.
Yeah, there you are.
That's my take on that.
Interesting. Yeah. And lean construction impacting estimators, we've kind of covered that now. The other kind of topic that I want to talk about, and it's something that a lot of people are talking about, is the data. But particularly how you incorporate data science into pre-construction workflows. How are you doing it right now, and what is the biggest lessons learned?
That's maybe the most cutting edge of all of these topics, right? I mean, that's a hard one to get buy-in on, even with people who are forward-thinking, I think, with pre-construction, because it's sort of difficult to understand why you would spend time or money on that. I think that with AI, and I have mixed feelings about AI for the record. Okay. So if it sounded like I was judgmental about it.
And by the way, we will get to that. I'm going to ask you about AI.
I think that's actually a very good application of AI, though.
Yeah.
I really do. I think you use things like Claude Code that can code in SQL, SQL, or R. It can be very useful for building models that you might use for incorporating data science into pre-construction. So some of the things that I've been exploring recently that we've been talking about, the thing that actually got some interest internally was looking at labor productivity as it relates to temperature. So, we work in the entire state of Alaska. You might work somewhere down south like Ketchikan or Juneau, where the weather isn't meaningfully different from, say, Seattle. know what I mean? It's mostly rainy, but it's pretty temperate. We also work on the Arctic slope and in Western Alaska where, you have sub 40 days regularly throughout the winter. And we made a decision on a project recently to try to install siding throughout a winter. That was a pretty rough winter.
Wow.
And seeing how weather affected labor productivity is a very interesting thing. It's a thing that you might incorporate if you were ever going to bid a project again with the intention to install siding through the winter.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of great applications of data science in pre-construction. I mentioned to you about David Hopkins. He's sort of like the forward-most thinking person, I think, right now on data science as it relates to construction. He owns the web address datascienceforconstruction.com.
Love it.
And he's got some great articles in that blog on how to get started with it and how you might apply it. Some other applications of it that I think could be interesting would be seeing how labor productivity increases on repetitive tasks. You might incorporate that. It's sort of common when you're looking at, like, say, siding install to say, okay, we produce, this square footage in an hour, or for every square foot, our labor productivity is this many hours per square foot. We estimate in hours per square foot, but I realize not everybody does, so I'm trying to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really happen like that. You know what I mean? If you look at the installation data, if you look at a commodity curve of that, there's a period where even your best crew, they're learning how to put it on.
Yeah.
Because it's different on this building, and it's maybe not exactly the same siding product. There's like 10,000 different metal siding products alone, right? So we take a number and it almost never installs at that number for very long. So either a period where you're getting ramped up and you're getting to speed, and then maybe there's even a period where after you've kind of plateaued, you ramp up beyond that because you figured out something along the way. For as much as you've tried to be thoughtful before the installation, you just figure out something that makes it easier to do it. And so I think, you might see more detailed self-performance estimates if you incorporate repetitive tasks, say, as they relate to labor productivity. But a lot of different things. I wrote an article in my blog recently about something I've been exploring with data science and pre-construction, which is predicting quantity growth risk as a function of design maturity. Okay. And so that's something that it's going to take me a little while to pull all of my data together for. You need a lot of points of data for statistical significance. But I'm working on it. And I think that there is something there. I think, I heard yesterday in a session, somebody said, the question was, it was a session about risk. And the question was, like, how much do you assign to any particular risk item? How do you decide? And the speaker said something to the effect of, like, well, a lot of the times it is just a gut. It's just a gut feeling. You just know because you've talked about it and you have the experience. And I sort of don't accept that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's not dangerous. It's grand for that person, but what about the next person?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, exactly. What about the next person, right? I mean, how do you feel good when you present numbers to clients and they look at these contingency numbers, say, and they say, well, how did you come up with that? Yeah. It's like, well, I just, we talked about this and it's roughly that much and this and that. And it's like, man, that really rubs me. If I hand someone an estimate, I have to be able to defend every number in it. And it's not good enough for me to say, well, my experience has told me this, or my gut says this, or maybe this guy, he ROM'd it. And, after talking and thinking through it, we went there. I think there are ways that you can predict it. I think you can use historical project data, and there might be some design maturity signals that would inform better contingency numbers than whatever the AACE guidelines say they should be for a particular level of design development.
Yeah, it's funny. We did a webinar recently with Sean Boyer, he's at the conference and he's speaking at the conference, and he said the most fundamental his data journey has been going for 2 decades. The single biggest decision was the data points that they were going to collect. And being consistent with that. That then makes your historical data so accurate, so valuable, and it allows you then to properly predict what costs are going to be.
It sort of drives me crazy that we collect all this data and you can do so much with it. And we just don't do a ton of that right now. Yeah. As an industry, not at Cornerstone, but as an industry, we collect a ton of data and it's like, man, you're spending money to collect it. Like, use it,
That's it. And listen, Claude Code and Claude Coworker and AI will help us with that. But when it's super organized and the data points are there and we know and they're consistent, and as you say, you know the story behind the numbers, it's so much more valuable.
For sure. Yeah. And it's good for a lot of different things, I think. I really do. I think, the more methodical you can be in your approach with anything is how good you will do everything. Yeah. Right. So it's also, I think, a little bit on principle.
Yeah.
Beyond whatever impression you might make on a client or however you might impress somebody or whatever, it's good for you to do things that, force you to think about it and force you to approach it methodically, because you miss fewer things that way, and it translates to how well you do anything in pre-con or anything in your life, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just on data science as well, you mentioned a blog there. Give us an insight into the blog and what was the idea of starting the blog?
It's not a very good blog. It's not a very good blog.
Well, I mean, if it's a blog talking about data science and referencing David Hopkins, there must have been a lot of thought going into it. Yeah,
so I have a blog myself, and it's basically just to share my thoughts around pre-con and construction, I guess, at large.
Yeah.
But I've recently culled a bunch of articles from it that I didn't like for one reason or another. So I've only got a couple up there now, a couple of articles. And both of them you can find on my LinkedIn as well.
Good.
Because I don't link my LinkedIn to my blog. But yeah, I mean, I sort of thought it might be kind of cool just to work through the thoughts in a way that allowed me to memorialize them. And you think through things a little bit better, I think, when you write them down.
Yeah,
so
100%. And it's so important that we do that, because we know how tough pre-construction and estimating is. But the more we talk about it, the more benefit other people will get from it. And again, it's almost like a therapy session.
Yeah.
When you do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the pre-construction first community is all about. They're just putting their thoughts down on paper, and people are coming back going, I agree with you, and I went through it 6 months ago, and this is the conclusion I came to. Here's 6 months of research and pain that I went through. You don't have to go through it. Here you are.
I'm actually using it, candidly, I'm using it right now as like you say, as a sort of therapy. Like, I have a really hot take right now that I've been stewing on for months now, and I'm working through an upcoming post about that. So
Good.
I'm
to
getting the data together.
Well, I tell you what, folks, I know you'll be interested in this, because people love that I love people and promote people that share their thoughts on LinkedIn, especially pre-construction estimating. So I will put the URL to your blog in the show notes as well.
Okay.
Talk to me now, before we get off the data science topic. David Hopkins.
Yeah.
Summarize his philosophy around data science right now, what he sees in the future, and what you're hopeful for.
Man, I'd hate to speak on his behalf.
Of course.
So I would hate to speak on his behalf, but what I would...
From your perspective.
What I would say is that he makes it very approachable. I think, when you talk about data science or statistics in construction or anything like that, it can feel very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Feel very overwhelming, intimidating maybe even. And I think he makes it super approachable. I think he's a person, at least in my experience, spending some time with him, he is a person who really values good data. And like I said, I know he spent some time on the bench in court and litigation with serving as an expert, right? He does some forensic estimating work, some consulting work to uncover fraud, waste, and abuse, and these sorts of things. So, I mean, evidence and data, right, I think is probably very important to him. So, the blog has had little progress recently, but I know he's still excited about it. And he's going to be speaking as well at ASPE this year. So,
There you are. Yeah.
if you go to Summit in the fall in Orlando, September 24th, 25th, and 26th, he's speaking 2 days as well.
Love it.
And one of the topics, I don't recall both of them, but I know that one of the things he's talking about is the ongoing relevance of Excel as a estimating solution.
Nice.
Which is kind of a hot take all on its own. Right?
That's what I was going to say. We could spend another hour talking about that, Nathan.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
For the record, I mean, I love Excel. I really do. I love Excel probably more than most people do.
Yeah.
But I don't like it as an estimating solution.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd be very interested to hear what he has to say on
Well,
that.
that's it. I mean, is it a tagline? Does it create a bit of interest, or does he actually believe it, or is he going to kind of bait and switch? It'll be interesting to see.
Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about Excel, right, is that most people just think of it as a glorified calculator.
Yeah.
Especially younger people.
Yeah.
Think of it as like a glorified calculator. If you ask people, how to rate themselves, we do this now in interviews, right? We ask people to rate their Excel skills 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And most people say somewhere around like 7, 8, something like that. But then you find out that their understanding of Excel is as a glorified calculator. And then so you think, okay, it's really probably more like 4, right?
Yeah.
They're not using the VBA editor. They're not using lambdas. They're not writing algorithms that are specific to their use cases. So, Excel can be a very powerful tool. David, I'm sure, uses it better than most people you'd ever meet would use Excel. Very interested to hear what he has to say.
Absolutely, and we'll hear more from that. And I think that's another thing that the ACCE and the ASPE, how important these organizations are to basically training and developing the next generation. Particularly ASPE. I mean, I know the certification is exceptional, and we get asked all the time, what should I do to upskill myself outside of work? And we always recommend the ASPE. How important has it been for your journey?
Yeah, pretty life-changing, right? Yeah. It really has been, which is weird to say, actually, as I say it out loud. But if I'm honest, it really has. I think that at first I joined AACE, which is a great organization, and I don't think you'd be wrong to explore either one, for the record. There's no disrespect on any professional organization, that would provide you the ability to grow in your career, and I think AACE does that. But I've gotten a lot of benefit out of ASPE,
cool.
Having switched my membership over there. I originally thought I might pursue the AACE is CEP,
cool,
the Certified Estimating Professional, and ASPE is CPE, Certified Professional Estimator.
Yeah.
A little bit tricky. A lot of acronyms, right? So a little bit tricky on that. But I ended up obtaining the CPE, and it has been a really, really great organization to be part of.
Good.
It's the best conference all year long, I think, for estimators. Everyone who attends is an estimator or a pre-con professional in one way, not say a designer or an owner. You have a mix of that at events like this in DBIA, but Summit is really...
Just tell us more about Summit. Has that just happened? Is it further down in the year? Because I'm sure people would love to attend. How do you go about attending?
Yeah, it is further in the year, right? So it's September 24th, 25th, and 26th in Orlando this year.
Nice.
You can register for it on ASP's website, aspnational.org, I think it is. And it's a killer event. It's my favorite conference every year. It's super educational. I think more beneficial in terms of technical education than any other, say DBIA or Advancing Preconstruction or Precon World or anything else, right? I mean, it's a really great networking event. It's a really great social event, really educational. This year, they're going to split the conference. Historically, everything's been on one stage. This year, they're splitting it into 2 stages to drive the content towards the different groups of people that would attend, whether they're just entering their pre-construction careers or whether they're seasoned in their pre-construction careers. They're going to have, I think, some education opportunities this year that will earn you credits towards the certificate in construction estimating that they offer. But yeah, I mean, it's killer. They do it every September, and I just think everybody should go to it. If you have a group of, I think it's like 2 to 4 from your company, you can get a 5% discount on registration.
Nice.
If you have more than 4 people from your company that want to attend, you get a 10% discount on registration.
There you are, folks. Orlando, September. If you're an estimator, pre-construction professional, get yourself down there for some good peer-to-peer learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best one to be at, for sure.
Nathan, there's no question in my mind we could speak for another 2 hours, but time has caught up on us. I would imagine that there's loads of people listening to this, whether it's lean construction, the estimating, whether it's incorporating data science, talking about David Hopkins, talking about their career path. They may want to ask you more questions. So where's the best place to get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, we connected through LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so shoot me a message on there. I'd be more than happy to talk about any of that. You can also reach me through the blog. I have like a little contact form at the bottom, so you could reach me that way.
Love it. We'll put both. We'll put your LinkedIn URL down there, but also the blog URL so people can reach out to you. And I'm sure they might be able to see you in Orlando in September as well.
Yes. Yeah. They'll be able to see me down there. I'll be there for that event. I don't think I'll attend another conference yet this year. So if we're going to meet in person, that's the place to do it.
Love it. And it's always better in person.
Yeah. Sure.
Hey, listen, thank you very much, Nathan. Looking forward to following you. Really appreciate your time now, and good luck with Cornerstone.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, man.
You're a legend.
Yeah.
Thank you.